Hello and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Razan Pereira. Well, asserting that terrorism is the biggest problem facing the world, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday said that there was a need to ensure that countries supporting and assisting terrorists are held guilty in an oblique reference to Pakistan. Addressing the summit of the five-nation grouping BRICS via video conferencing, the Prime Minister also said that there was a need to tackle the problem of terrorism in an organized manner. The 12th BRICS summit, hosted by Russian President Vladimir Putin, was also attended by Chinese President Xi Jinping, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. Talking about the COVID-19 crisis, Prime Minister Modi said India's vaccine production and delivery capabilities will work in the interest of humanity. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin endorsed Prime Minister Modi's emphasis on terrorism, saying some countries were like the black sheep of the family. The Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa grouping adopted a new counter-terrorism strategy on Tuesday. In this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the takeaways from the BRICS summit. Joining me on the program today are Manjeev Singh Puri, former ambassador, Sriram Chaulia, Foreign Affairs Analyst, and Shubhajit Roy, Associate Editor of The Indian Express. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. All right, Shubhajit Roy, let me start the program with you first. Let's first try and understand and analyze the highlights of the BRICS summit.
Thank you, Frank, for inviting me to your show. Well, the BRICS summit took place, at a time when the COVID pandemic has not abated. But there are signs of at least three vaccines that are in sight. With this context in mind, the BRICS summit took place through virtual means. This also took place in the context from India's perspective, almost more than 6 months after the India-China border standoff, which has been ongoing, and there has been no resolution in sight. So these are the two things that we need to keep in mind if we are analyzing the BRICS summit. In this context, the Prime Minister raised the issue of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic recovery and the vaccines, the pharmaceuticals. All these issues was raised by the Prime Minister. The second issue that was raised by the Prime Minister was the need for reforms at the UN and other multilateral organizations. And the third thing, and which obviously caught the headlines, was the direct reference to Pakistan, without naming Pakistan, but a very direct and apparent reference to Pakistan, where he said that the countries which are supporting terrorism should also be held guilty. The BRICS countries also came up with two documents. One was the BRICS Declaration, which is a 97-paragraph document, probably one of the longest joint declaration I have seen. I defer to Ambassador Puri here. He is a much more experienced diplomat on this panel, if he has seen a longer joint declaration, joint communique. Apart from that, the other important document that was released was the counter-terrorism strategy. Now, this counterterrorism strategy actually gives a very point-by-point and a detailed enunciation of the sort of a congruence of minds of the five BRICS countries, which have taken a position, very clear position, that countries which support, orchestrate, instigate terrorism should be held guilty. And
Right.
that is the most biggest takeaway after this summit.
Okay. From a diplomatic point of view, Ambassador, what were the key takeaways for you?
Frank, thank you for inviting me, and let me compliment you at the outset for continuing your focus on major developments in the world of direct interest to India, including the BRICS summit. We are all besotted by what has happened across the Atlantic Ocean. BRICS, as you know, is the other large getting together. The G7 on one side, the developed West in a sense, and the G7 has been posited in various minds across the world as the other. Of course, we have challenges among ourselves. You yourself started by mentioning the India-China contestation and confederation. There are many other issues. But the importance of this organization for a country like India cannot be underestimated. And it is very good that the summit has happened. Let us remember that India has now taken over the chair of the BRICS, and the next summit in 2021 will be hosted by India. So it becomes a very important staging post also for us and our perspectives. In this context, let me agree very strongly with Shubhajit when he mentioned the counter-terrorism strategy. Now, let's be clear, among all the BRICS countries, the country most affected and most direct stakeholder in the fight against terrorism has been India. And to get Russia, Brazil, and South Africa, as well as the Chinese, whose interests in Pakistan are very well known, to come on board has not been a small achievement, indeed very important. And this counterterrorism strategy document refers to things such as the CCIT, which has been stuck for a very long time at the United Nations. So these are all good auguries. In my perspective, there were a few other things. The Honorable Prime Minister again used this major forum of major countries to stress the need for UN reform, in particular, the reform of the Security Council. Now, we all know the Chinese have not been enthusiastic, but neither have the Russians. And so, therefore, this was a very important place to make this point with those who are really going to matter in taking these things forward. And let me point out, in the Moscow Declaration, the so-called BRICS Declaration, there is not just a pointed reference to breathe new life into Security Council reform, mirroring the outcome document of the 75th celebratory document at the United Nations, but the reference to the 2005 outcome document at the UN, which really energized the need for Security Council reform. I also noticed that in these 97 paragraphs, voluminous by standards of joint declarations of plurilateral groupings, there's also reference to global issues such as renewing the US-Russia treaty on keeping at bay the strategic weapons. These are all very important things, and they're reflective of the state of the world as of today, and especially in the last couple of weeks. I don't think the leaders were not really aware of that. All in all, I think an excellent summit, very good, and we did once again something that we always strive for, was to really keep bilateral issues out of the issue, but focus on big issues which are of critical interest to a country like India, which is really climbing the global ladder and climbing it fast. So all in all, good. And I am so happy that the next summit will be ours, and we will now have the chair of the BRICS.
Absolutely. We'll talk about what is it that we need to look forward to the summit in 2021 when we are the chair in just a bit. But before that, Sriram Chaulia, let me bring you into the picture now, and let's focus a little bit on this counter-terrorism strategy document that was adopted. Can this be seen as a major victory for India, considering that, the other countries are not as susceptible to terrorism as India is?
Yeah, Frank, especially in a grouping where for Brazil and South Africa, it's somewhat peripheral because they don't face as much of a jihadist challenge in their neighborhood. Although recently in Mozambique, right across the border, there have been some attacks and beheadings and horrific things. But in general, that part of Africa and Latin America, they have different concerns. So primarily, it's the trio of Russia, China, and India which are directly impacted by this menace. And I think they were the ones, and definitely India, like Ambassador mentioned, is the most impacted of all. And therefore, we have been pushing for this. The only thing I would say is that, in summits, the Chinese often agree to these nicely worded statements and, high-sounding platitudes about cooperation, intelligence sharing. Even I think the counterterrorism strategy says things like no double standards. Now, that is something that we would want them to really walk the talk, right? Because the way they have coddled Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar and all these people over the years, and the way they have provided protection to the Pakistanis. But of course, end of the day, to have them to commit in word, at least on paper, is a good thing, and something that we can always raise in subsequent negotiations and engagements with them. Ideally, they have an issue in the Xinjiang region, but they often, blow it out of proportion, make a mountain out of a molehill. But overall, there is a sense that the region and the world faces serious challenges. Recently, we've seen these series of attacks in Europe as well. So there is the ISIS ideology, which is probably not controlled by any single state. And which is spreading transnationally. So, one of the points in the counterterrorism strategy adopted by BRICS, Frank, was that we should work at the extremism and the radicalism that is fueling this spate of violence and hatred. So there, I think, again, the record speaks. I mean, the way we have done our counterterrorism has been far more humane. The way the Chinese have, locked up more than 1 million people in Xinjiang is barbaric. But nonetheless, and the Russians also often use disproportionate force in their battles in Chechnya and Dagestan and elsewhere. But nonetheless, I think at a level of national security, BRICS has evolved. They have got so many mechanisms now. It's institutionalized, and it's good that the leaders at the level of intelligence agencies and interior ministers and defense ministers, national security advisors, they continue to have engagements. And this builds trust to some extent because there are three pillars in BRICS, they say. One is the economy and trade and all those things. The other is the security. And the third is, they say, culture and people to people. So on security, we do need this. And this is apart from avoiding the territorial expansionism and all that. Even we slipped that into the final document also. I would say it's a minor victory for India, where we said respecting sovereignty and territorial integrity and avoiding aggression is important.
Right.
And the Chinese go along with it because they don't think they have committed any aggression. But nonetheless, it is there for the record, and we can hold it up. And it's a 5-member grouping, and we can use these mechanisms in the future to build upon this to generate actionable cooperation. Intelligence sharing is good.
Sure.
The Russians have a lot of intelligence in the region about jihadist groups. So if we can pool this, it will help us to avert active terrorist attacks and to bust terrorist rings and cells. Transnational and cross-border terrorism was also mentioned, Frank. So these
Right.
are all good things. That's where our interests lie, and we have made sure that our interests are shared with the rest of them and reflected in a common language.
Absolutely. All right. Points taken, taking the discussion forward now. Shubhajit, as far as the COVID-19 pandemic is concerned, you started your opening remarks on that note too. How much of cooperation can we expect from the BRICS grouping as far as dealing with the pandemic is concerned? Is there anything specific?
Yes, we saw that the Russian vaccine, the Sputnik 5 vaccine, has been, Indian government has been in talks about getting that vaccine. In fact, Dr. Reddy's lab has signed an agreement with the agency, the Russian agency, which is producing those vaccines. The first consignment, in fact, came a few days ago to India, and we saw pictures of those vaccine. In fact, Russian President Vladimir Putin specifically said that the Russian vaccine would be produced in India and China as well in his remarks. And he made it very clear. So that is a very important sort of form of collaboration that will emerge in the next few months, not very far away. And the entire world is waiting for that vaccine to get back to the post-pandemic life. Apart from that, India has already proven its worth in being the pharma of the world, pharmaceutical hub or a powerhouse to the world when it supplied hydroxychloroquine to more than 150 countries. Also, India has supplied PPE kits and other such objects, other such articles to fight with the pandemic. So there is a scope of cooperation with proven track record from both Russia and India. And China is also experimenting with its own vaccine. So there is a lot of room for cooperation. And because this was number one agenda on the top of the minds of all 5 leaders, so they discussed this particular issue in great detail on how they can take forward the cooperation at a more operational level, at a more concrete level, and
Right.
not just empty words and just paragraphs and statements.
Absolutely. All right. So, Ambassador, between now and the next summit in 2021, where India is the chair, what is it that we can expect?
Frank, if you will allow me, let me just add something to what Shubhajit said. You know, Russia and China are, in a sense, in the market for the COVID-19 vaccine. Look at the point made by the Honorable Prime Minister in a most beautiful but telling manner. We are the ones who have done what we could with our abilities, PPEs, hydroxychloroquine, and we are the ones who will make whatever the world brings forward available to the masses and hence be those who will be supportive of humankind. I thought it was a very well crafted set of words and very well put, and the message would certainly have gone down with the others whose actions have been, we are the big muscular guys in terms of science and technology and we are doing it. But BRICS is about innovative growth. So this particular entire summit was about global stability, shared security, and innovative growth. And what is innovative growth is all about pulling yourself together. What can you do to try and take things forward so that you better things for yourself as well as for humanity? Now, you very rightly mentioned 2021, where India will be the chair and we'll be hosting the BRICS summit. I hope sincerely it will be an in-person summit because it is my considered belief that such high-level interactions, especially among such important players, when they are held in person, many more things can be achieved, many more things can be done. Also in terms of side meetings, etc., there is this particular limit of doing things virtually, although the fact that it has been held is good by itself. What is it that we would push? Now, there's a very interesting augury of coincidences. India joins the Security Council on the 1st of January. We are also joining the trio of the G20, and we'll be hosting the G20 summit in 2022 here in India. So when you put all these things together, this is actually an opportune time to talk with the most important countries in the world on the greatest issue, which is institutional reform of multilateralism to make it relevant to contemporary reality and be in the service of humanity. Put it very simply, UN Security Council reform. Russia and China, both kind of naysayers. Can we bring them on board? What can we do in these particular contexts? I think that shall certainly inform us in terms of what we'd like to do, other than innovation and growth, and try and take these things forward.
Absolutely. All right. So, Sriram Chaulia, let's talk about another aspect now and bring it in because I think it was the ambassador who raised it in his opening remarks. Let's also understand that there's a level of maturity as far as these 5 countries are concerned, because we've seen multilaterals in the past getting derailed because of personal bilateral issues. Take the SAARC, for instance. The similar thing, considering what has been happening between India and China, could have happened with any of these other blocs as well, but that has not happened. That also shows a level of maturity and the kind of mechanism we have in place to sort out these kind of issues.
Yeah, Frank, this is the 12th summit. We have been having this since 2009. So, and those were relatively better days in China-Indian bilateral ties. Before Xi Jinping came to power, we didn't have as many, territorial aggression problems and, conflicts on the border and so on. China has become far more pushy only in the last 7 to 8 years, especially under Xi Jinping. So in earlier times, so BRICS signified that hope, at the initial era, 2006 to 2009, when it was being elevated from a ministerial to a heads of state level dialogue forum and becoming institutionalized, that there are 2 objectives. One was, we said multipolar world, right? Even now, the Moscow Declaration talks about multipolarity. So that is a shared thing, and that's a common thing. And that is where we, to some extent, keep aside our individual rivalries, because we want large developing countries represented in these 5, and people talk about BRICS Plus, and there are a few others that can be, counted in this category of emerging market economies. We all have a common aspiration to make the world more democratic and balanced. So to that extent, especially the Chinese have wanted to use BRICS for external balancing against the US, to show that we are responsible, we are a team player. Now look at the new development bank of BRICS. The way it has been structured is quite democratic, and we fought for it. The Chinese initially wanted to turn it into another World Bank type institution where they will call all the shots and they will have the maximum voting share. It will be headquartered in China. They will, determine the policies and all that. But actually, we and the others, the other three members of BRICS, negotiated hard with them, and so the NDB was structured at the outset in 2015 itself as a level playing field where each country has equal share capital irrespective of the actual GDP size of these countries. And Mr. Kamath became the first president of the NDB. Now a Brazilian is holding it. So the Chinese have, in a way, restrained themselves to some extent, or been compelled to restrain because they want this grouping to show to the West that we can create an alternative world order. But internally, within BRICS also, there is an internal balancing. India especially, I think, is by being there, we don't boycott BRICS because we are having a border conflict with China. Why? Because being inside BRICS helps us to restrain and moderate China to some extent, and to tie China into a web of multilateralism that is more cooperative. And we understand China's need for BRICS as a counter to the West. We are not so anti-Western, but we also want a reform of the multilateral order. So these, if you look at nuances, that is why this maturity you're talking about has been sustained. So short of war with China over the border or in the Indian Ocean, we will continue with BRICS and we will try to keep this cooperative project going, because that is how our own influence also rises as a responsible power that is taking others along and also representing interests of least developed countries.
Sure.
The declaration time talks about the needs of LDCs and waiving the debt and debt servicing in the corona period. So we are trying to show that we can have leadership in a collective form. So I think that has indeed matured and it will stay its course. So nobody should criticize BRICS saying it's a waste, or that the Chinese are hoodwinking or dominating it. If the Chinese were dominating it, we will not join it. We have not joined BRI. We have not joined Belt and Road, but we are part of NDB because we have forced the Chinese in many ways to moderate themselves in this institutionalized forum. So institutionalism is good, and we will try to preserve it.
Okay, time now to get quick closing comments from all my panelists with the best way forward. Starting first with you, Subhajit.
Yes, I completely agree with Dr. Chaulia, who said the need to be on the table. There's a very famous saying amongst diplomats is, if you don't want to be on the menu, you have to be at on the table. So I think I would say that India has to be part of as many multilateral groupings, because they enable India leverage against bigger powers or middle powers or any other country when it comes to negotiations. As India takes leadership role next year at the UNGA, at the UN Security Council, or the BRICS, even the SCO, India has to use all these avenues, all these opportunities to maximize this diplomatic potential.
Absolutely. Ambassador.
Frank, I agree very much with both my colleagues, and I want to say BRICS is a particularly useful plurilateral entry in which India has a meaningful and an important role. As we will take its chair and as we will host the next summit, it is a platform of opportunity for us to be able to reach out into the world and actually bring about meaningful reforms which will be good for us and good for the world. And so therefore, I'm very glad the summit happened, and very good that we are going to be helming BRICS, which is a critically important platform for global governance.
Absolutely. All right. And Sriram Chaulia, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Yeah, the part that we missed was BRICS, intra-BRICS trade. Prime Minister Modi pushed for the target of 500 billion intra-BRICS trade, to come about, and he has proposed mechanisms to reduce, non-tariff barriers and other things. I think that's important because, collectively BRICS economies are going through a downtime due to the pandemic. The GDP of BRICS is projected to fall by 30% this year. Only China is eking out a bare minimum 1% positive growth. All the others are in the red. So we do need to enhance through the BRICS Business Forum and through investment mechanisms and dialogue forums that were created under the BRICS umbrella, how to fast forward growth, because without that, our swagger on the world stage to create a multipolar world, all those will be curtailed. So I think we must pay a lot of attention to improving economic exchanges, equitable exchanges as we would like, not one-way trade, which is swamping our market with dumped products from China. But we want the other three players to also come in to balance out the Chinese. That has always been our game in BRICS, and that's why we are in BRICS.
All right. On that note, then, I'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that the grouping's adoption of a new counter-terrorism strategy is a move in the right direction. It has gotten to commit, or rather gotten China to commit to fight against terror, which is good because we can take it up with China at a later stage. BRICS has evolved over the years and has shown tremendous maturity. Bilateral issues between member nations has not come in the way of the larger good. The common interests and aspirations seem to hold much more weightage than the bilateral prickling points. And let's not forget that the BRICS also is a useful plurilateral grouping as far as India is concerned, which we can use for our own good, for the good of the entire bloc and also for the good of the world. And the chair of the BRICS, which is going to be with India in 2021, is something that we look forward to, and we hope that it will bring out some great results. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.